Let's go, baby. Hey, how you doing today? Hey, listen, we love the videos, baby. They're never going to stop. So here's what we're going to cover today. All right, we've got some things to cover in terms of sales plateau, right? Most salespeople don't fail because they can't sell. They fail because they get good enough, right? Good enough to make money, good enough to hit quota occasionally, good enough to stop questioning themselves. And that's where growth dies. Because when you first start in sales, everything is new. You're learning constantly, but eventually you develop patterns. You find what works. You become comfortable. And then 6 months go by and you're having the same conversations, asking the same questions, handling objections the same way, and producing roughly the same results, right? You've plateaued. So today I want to break down why that happens, and more importantly, how do you get out of it? Okay, let's jump down to module 1. Make sure you're writing all this down. This stuff's really important, okay? So module 1's titled, Experience Doesn't Automatically Create Skill. It doesn't. Right? There's a massive difference between having 5 years of sales experience and having 1 year of sales experience repeated 5 times. Repetition only creates improvement when there's correction attached to it. So think about your last 500 sales conversations, right? Did you actually analyze them? Did you identify where prospects disengage? Did you study the questions that created the strongest responses? Did you notice where your tonality changed? And more importantly, did you identify where you lost control? Okay, volume matters tremendously in sales, but volume without analysis can reinforce bad habits. So if you make the same mistake 1,000 times, you've become extremely experienced at making that same mistake, right? We don't want to do that. We want to win. You got to keep getting better. You got to study. That's what it takes. Let's go down to module 2, right? Your brain automates what you repeat. That's the title of module 2. Write that down. Okay, your brain automates what you repeat. Look, there's a psychological reason salespeople plateau. Your brain loves efficiency. When you're new, a sales conversation requires tremendous conscious attention. You're thinking, what should I ask next? What does that answer mean? Where should I take this conversation? But eventually those behaviors become automatic, right? That's useful. The problem is that bad behaviors become automatic too. You start assuming you know what the prospect means, so you stop digging, right? You have to have curiosity like a cat, right? You got to have 9 lives. Think about it, right? So you start anticipating objections instead of listening. You begin presenting before you fully diagnose the problem. You no longer are consciously selling. You're running a pattern. Plateaus begin when automatic behaviors replace deliberate thought, okay? So let's go over to module 3 here. Module 3 is titled, Stop Being Curious, okay? Hey, one of the clearest signs of a plateau is that you're losing curiosity, okay? A beginner doesn't know what the prospect is going to say. An average salesperson thinks they already know. So they hear, I need to think about it, and immediately categorize it, okay? That's a money objection. That's a spouse objection. That's a fear objection. That's a timing objection. But hey, dude, what if you're wrong, okay? Great salespeople remain curious longer. So instead of immediately attacking the objection, what they do is they investigate it. Hey, when you say you need to think about it, what specifically are you still uncertain about, okay? Now what happens is you're gathering information. So the moment you believe you heard everything before is the moment your listening starts deteriorating. Let's go over to module 4 here, okay? Module 4. Entitled module 4, Your Questions Stop Evolving. Okay, your questions stop evolving. No, but it's true, okay? So go back and listen to your calls from 6 months ago. Now listen to your calls today. Are your questions significantly better? Because they should be, right? Because questioning is one of the highest leverage skills in sales. Early stage salespeople ask questions to collect information. Advanced salespeople ask questions that change how someone thinks. Now there's a major difference. How long have you been dealing with this? And if you've known this was a problem for 2 years, Janet, what has prevented you from actually solving it? The second question forces reflection. Your questions should evolve as your skills evolve, right? If your questions haven't changed, there's a good chance your skills haven't either, right? Your skills haven't changed. You're getting any better. All right, let's go over to module 5, okay? Listen, write it down, title it. You only train your weakness after it costs you money, okay? Think how stupid that is. I'd rather attack my weaknesses like a savage, right? You got to be a psychopath about sales. It's your money, right? You're a psycho about money. You need to be a psycho about training and getting your skill up. That's just how it works. Go over to, write this down right here, okay? Make sure you write this down. You guys writing this down? Most salespeople train reactively, okay? They lose 3 deals because of price. Now they want objection training, okay? They struggle with discovery. Now they want questioning training. That's backwards. right? Professionals don't wait for weakness to become expensive. They identify weakness before they become visible in the numbers. So every week, ask yourself, what part of my sales process is currently weakest? Is it the opening, rapport, discovery, follow-up questions, tonality, presentations, objection, closing? Pick one, then deliberately attack that skill, right? Let's go over to module 6 here. You're practicing everything at once, right? You're practicing everything at once. Look, here's another reason people plateau. So they say, hey, I want to get better at sales. Well, that's too broad, okay? Imagine trying to improve basketball by saying, today I'm practicing basketball. Well, what specifically? Like, is it shooting? Is it footwork? Is it ball handling, defense, conditioning? And sales works the same way. So don't just practice sales, practice micro skills, okay? Today I'm working on slowing down after a prospect answers. Tomorrow I'm working on follow-up questions. Wednesday I'm studying tonality. Thursday I'm practicing objection isolation. Friday I'm reviewing my transitions. Specific practice creates specific improvement. That's how you got to think about it. All right, write this down. Module 7, your ego starts protecting your current skill level, okay? This is where talented salespeople get trapped. When you're bad, criticism is easy to accept, okay? You already know you're learning, right? But once you experience success, criticism becomes more threatening. Now, feedback challenges your identity. You start saying, well, that's just my style. I've done it this way. The prospect wasn't serious. The leads aren't good. Maybe. But those explanations can also protect you from asking the harder question is, what could I have done better? And the moment your ego becomes more important than improvement, your ceiling starts getting lower. Confidence is valuable, but confidence without self-examination becomes stagnation. Okay? Let's go over to module 8, right? Study your losses differently. Okay? Study your losses differently. Stop simply labeling a lost sale. Okay? That's so dumb. Right? Lost equals price. Believe I lost the deal because of price. Well, whose fault is that, dummy? Yours. Right? So ask, when did the sale actually begin falling apart? It might have happened 20 minutes before the price objection. Maybe you never established enough pain. Maybe the desired outcome wasn't clear. Maybe you presented something they didn't value. Maybe you failed to establish the cost of staying where they are. Maybe you never understood their decision-making process. The objection at the end of the call is often just a symptom. You need to find the cause. And that's how call review becomes valuable, right? Because you actually have intent in what you're doing, and you have a strategy to listening to a call, okay? So let's go over to module 9 here. Look, you have to create a deliberate feedback loop. If you want to break a plateau, build a system. Perform, review, diagnose, practice, perform again. Make the calls, review the calls, identify one weakness, practice that weakness, return to live conversations, then measure whether it improved or not. That's deliberate practice. And it creates something most salespeople never develop, self-correction, okay? Eventually you start noticing mistakes while they're happening. You hear yourself rushing, right? You catch yourself out there assuming things. You recognize that you didn't fully understand an answer. You correct yourself inside the conversation. That's a completely different level of skill, okay? Let's go over to module 10, okay? Write this down. Your next level requires a different version of you. The behaviors that took you from bad to average won't necessarily take you from average to good, and the behaviors that you made you good won't automatically make you great. At entry level, the standard changes. Your listening has to become sharper. Your questions have to become deeper. Your communication has to become cleaner. Your emotional control has to become stronger, right? Your preparation has to become more intentional. And your ability to critique yourself has to become more objective. So if you're producing roughly the same results for months, don't immediately assume you need better leads, a different script, or another closing technique. Just ask yourself a harder question. What part of my skill set hasn't evolved? Because your income eventually catches up to your skill level. And if you want different results, you have to become, well, obviously capable of producing them. So don't just get more experience. Get better at sales. Get better at mastering a skill. Pick up a sales book. Focus on a skill level. So hopefully this video was helpful. Make sure you like and subscribe. Check us out over at Universal Accounting Center. We'll teach you how to build an accounting firm in your area. See you around.